Hi, I am here with Charles Miller from Link. Low Earth orbit satellites is what we're going to be talking about today, and direct connections to smartphones, which I'm particularly excited about. So, Charles, it's great to have you here. Tell me a little bit more about Link, because obviously satellite constellations is a big topic here at MWC this year. You look at the likes of Starlink, OneWeb, all the rest of it, but you're a little bit different.
We are totally different. Well, so the way we're different is Starlink does not connect directly to your smartphone. We do. In fact, a few years ago, people said what we're doing now today, it was impossible, that you could not connect a satellite directly to your standard ordinary mobile phone. And we have done it. We have connected thousands of mobile devices in 5 different countries. Not only smartphones, but feature phones. We have connected cars, trucks, John Deere tractors, that without even them knowing it. We've done tests last fall, connecting thousands of devices all over the world.
I have to say, I was one of the people that was a bit skeptical. Someone said to me a few years ago, they're working on this technology, you'll be able to connect direct from a satellite to your smartphone, and I was like, no, that... So how does it work? I mean, what can you tell us about the technology behind this?
Right, so basically, we take what the software that would be in the cell tower, we put it in the satellite. And the satellite's in very low LEO, so it gets closer to Earth, so it connects. And when it connects, it's coming and going very fast. So we do what's called Doppler compensation, right? So that the phone doesn't see the Doppler, and it thinks it's a cell tower. We totally spoof the phone. The phone thinks our satellite is on the ground right next to it. Our satellite says when they're supposed to be close enough to talk, our satellite says, I'm right next to you, and the smartphone really isn't a smartphone. It's kind of a dumb phone in that way.
Are you working directly with carriers on this?
Yes, we're signing MNO, a carrier, once per month. We started signing contracts last August. We have 8 contracts to date. We just announced 2 contracts last week with island nations, where, big deal for island nations which have huge coverage problems. In Papua New Guinea and Solomon Islands we announced, and we've done the Bahamas, and a bunch of others we're in discussions with, and some we've signed we're not even talking about. So the MNOs, we're their best friend. This is a huge solution to what MNOs have been struggling with for 30 years. How do you extend connectivity everywhere? And the zero-G problem is really tough. 5G is all the rage in the industry, but 5G does not solve the zero-G problem. Link does, right? We have figured out a fundamental solution to providing coverage in all the black spots everywhere in the world that you can't use traditional ground-based towers to solve.
And I mean, you touched on something I wanted to sort of move on to. At the moment, this is primarily aimed at sort of rural areas, emerging markets, places where you don't currently have cell tower infrastructure in place. Do you see a point at which this goes beyond that, where it actually replaces traditional?
We have some MNOs telling us that they are going to use this to replace towers, that some of the towers they have operating are losing money, and they can't wait to shut down some of the towers because they really are money losers. So we're very much listening to the MNO partners we're talking to. We have some really big MNOs, both in not just rural areas, but in developed nations, who see the promise of this in the long term for maybe tower replacement.
I mean, it certainly puts a different spin on the current sort of vogue for spinning out your tower codes, sort of looking longer term. I also sort of wondered, in terms of the stratosphere and putting stuff up there, you have 5 satellites now.
Right.
And I assume you're planning on building out your constellation quite significantly.
Yep.
What are the challenges there? Because obviously it's getting busier and busier, and with Elon Musk saying that he wants to have 30,000 Starlink, satellites up there, what problems does that pose? And are we going to get to a point, do you think, where there's just too much stuff up there?
Well, orbital debris risk is a serious problem. I've been studying it for 15, 20 years. I led a team when I worked at NASA about 10 years ago, focused on solving the orbital debris problem. We take it very seriously. We have an approach that minimizes orbital debris risk, and it's going to be a challenge for the industry. Now, Link is planning to put up over 5,000 satellites. But our plan is to lower it, our satellites into very low LEO. If a satellite dies there, it comes down in a couple years and it's totally burned up in the atmosphere, so it's minimal orbital debris risk. We actually call it a self-cleaning orbit. And we're doing a lot of other things to minimize that risk. right? So we do not want to have a conflict for us solving a problem for connecting billions of people who are unconnected, right? And you're destroying low Earth orbit. That'd just be bad business, right? We wouldn't be able to serve people if the low Earth orbit fills up with debris.
And so, looking again, sort of in the worst case scenario, Kessler syndrome, satellites hitting each other. So obviously, what you're talking about is super interesting, because I've always sort of worried that we might end up having to sort of reinforce the roofs on our houses, just to deal with stuff coming down from the stratosphere. What do you have in place as a sort of backup? Supposing there's a failure of the satellite constellation, how do you then, keep communications going?
Well, we're going to have what's called a lot of redundancy in orbit. Our plan ultimately is we'll have over any part of over the Earth, if a satellite fails, we have about 5 other satellites as backup. And so, but more importantly, we're backup for planet Earth, right? When the hurricane hits, or the fires, or the tornadoes, or the tsunamis, when they hit and take out the terrestrial towers, we're instant backup. Our whole focus is on saving lives, right, and making, connecting people on Earth. So one of the most powerful things, and I think GSMA has been a big deal of this, is pointing it out, is mobile wireless pulls people out of poverty. Well, there's another billion people in the world that we haven't covered yet, and Link is going to be the one that connects them and helps the mobile wireless industry pull them out of poverty. So this is what we're doing together as an industry, is bringing the whole world out of poverty, and we just love what we're doing. We're partnering with MNOs.
So looking at IoT, obviously this is another big sort of use case for this type of connectivity. Right. And I mean, how big are the implementations that you can cover at the moment?
Right. Well, we have a breakthrough with IoT. Mobile cars come off the assembly line with a cellular chip in them. You don't have any change of the car, and now the car is going to stay connected everywhere, right? John Deere tractors have cellular chips in them. They're going to stay connected everywhere. So we solve a big problem for mobile IoT solutions like cars and trucks and planes, that they're, LoJack everywhere, OnStar everywhere, and you never lose track of these hugely valuable assets. And it's the most lowest cost form of IoT too, because the IoT chips that are cellular chips cost you $5 or $10. It's not a $100 satellite IoT chip. This is a $5 or $10 chip, and we're going to bring this IoT business into our mobile wireless partners who care about IoT. So we're hand in glove with the MNOs of the world.
That's fantastic. It's super, super interesting. And, I know that we're going to be following up with Link in the future to see how these things sort of pan out. One last question. I mean, if you had to sort of look at the current players, you've got Starlink, you've got Kuiper, OneWeb, who do you see as your most immediate competition? I know you will do very different things. But...
Right. So we actually don't think of them in any of them as competition. They're what we call backhaul to Wi-Fi. So when you get Wi-Fi in your home, you put this 18-inch dish in your home, and it's fixed, and it costs a couple $1,000s to build those, and you'll get great 100 megabits per second on your home. The moment you walk out of the Wi-Fi, we fill in the black spots. So we are completely complementary and different than all those companies, right? We're not competing against any of them. In fact, we think we help make their business plans better. For all those next billion people in emerging markets who get their first phone because of Link, they're all going to want a Wi-Fi hotspot at their local coffee shop, or the equivalent of their local coffee shop, right? And if everybody in these rural, remote towns now has a mobile phone and they want better speed, somebody in that local business is going to go to Starlink and say, I want your terminal, your Wi-Fi on my roof, because I'm going to get more business. So we actually drive growth, not only for MNOs, but for the Starlinks and OneWebs of the world.
So you mentioned a constellation of 5,000 satellites. How long do you think realistically it's going to take you to actually hit that milestone? And at what point will you have kind of more global coverage?
Right. So our objective is to get the continuous real-time service that needs at least 1,000 of those 5,000 by 2025. And that's dependent on the biggest constraint on our schedule is raising the capital. So we're in talks with lots of major investors right now and strategic investors. And as long as we can hit those milestones of raising the capital, we will, in the next 4 or 5 years, have broadband everywhere directly to your phone.
Great. Thank you so much, Charles, for taking the time to talk to us. I know you'll be very busy, like everybody else is here at Mobile World Congress. We're halfway through the week, so yeah.
Thank you, Fiona. It's been a great event so far. It's much better than I was thinking it might be.
Me too, absolutely. It's so nice to actually talk to people face to face.
Yes.
And that's what everyone has been saying to me.